In 1513, when the ink on the pages of The Prince had barely dried, Niccolo Machiavelli already understood what today's elite prefers to hide behind manufactured smiles and hollow talking points about equality. From the damp walls of his exile outside Florence, he derived the formula that, 500 years later, continues to unlock the rooms where world-altering decisions are made. While most people cling to the belief that success is a direct payoff from hard work and raw talent, the real players understand that the social ladder is not a merit-based competition, it is a ruthless chess match played in the dark. You can possess the intellectual firepower of 10 geniuses combined, but if you don't understand the unwritten laws of influence, you are condemned to spend your entire life watching less capable but more cunning operators claim the position that should have been yours. Real power is never granted as a reward for tenure. It is seized through a precise understanding of human psychology and the ability to engineer circumstances so they compound in your favor. The world around you is divided into those who set the rules and those who obediently follow them without ever recognizing their own captivity. Power players don't go looking for friends in the crowd, they go looking for tools and assets that reinforce their own position. Every conversation at the upper echelons of society is a hidden value auction where the currency is information, loyalty, and practical utility. If you walk into the room from a position of need, you have already lost, because desperation has a smell that apex predators can detect from across the room. But that is only the first blow to your illusions, because the first step toward the top begins with completely eliminating emotional decision-making from your social strategy. The first law of social ascent states that you must become strategically indispensable long before you ever dare to approach someone who holds real leverage. Most people make the fatal mistake of trying to impress a power player through flattery or by putting their ambition on full display. In reality, the top 1% deals with hundreds of people every single day who want their money, their network, or their validation. Your desire to be part of their circle registers as nothing but background noise until you bring a specific solution to a problem that is keeping them up at night. Study their business, understand their personal pressure points, and identify the soft underbelly of their empire that they work overtime to keep hidden from outside eyes. Become the rare individual who doesn't ask for anything, but instead delivers relief from the pressure bearing down on them, transforming yourself into an irreplaceable mechanism inside their complex operation.
When you remove friction from a leader's path, you stop being a peripheral figure and become a valued asset they need to protect and keep close. Real access to closed-door circles cannot be bought. It is earned by anticipating the needs of those above you before they even articulate them. You must operate like a surgeon who knows precisely where the pain is and eliminates it without sentimentality or unnecessary commentary. But understand that even the highest degree of usefulness will not save you if you haven't mastered control over how you are perceived. The second law demands mastery of strategic opacity, because radical transparency is the fastest route to losing influence. The moment people begin to understand your motivations and predict your next move, you become a safe, manageable, and ultimately dismissible variable in their calculations.
Information is the single most powerful lever in human history, and giving it away for free is the equivalent of voluntarily disarming yourself in front of a hostile counterparty. Power players always maintain a zone of deliberate ambiguity, keeping those around them guessing about their true intentions and the full scope of their resources. Never show your cards, even when you are convinced you are sitting in a room full of trusted allies. Your plans, your ambitions, and your next moves must remain buried beneath a surface layer of polished restraint and calculated silence. The less those around you understand about your methods, the higher your perceived value becomes, because mystery generates respect and a subtle undercurrent of fear that keeps people on their best behavior around you. A predictable person is a boring person, and boring people rarely reach the top. They become background noise in someone else's success story. But maintaining secrecy is purely defensive. To advance, you must find side doors where everyone else sees nothing but a solid wall. The third law establishes that the direct path to the top is almost always blocked, and the smart operator always looks for a back channel. Most ambitious people make the mistake of trying to storm the front entrance, only to be met by polished gatekeepers, vigilant assistants, and multi-layered filtering systems specifically engineered to keep ordinary people out and protect the time of those at the top of the food chain. If you play the same game as everyone else, you inevitably get the same result as every other applicant, a polite rejection or complete radio silence. A sharp mind understands that every power player operates within a unique ecosystem of trusted advisors, old friends, business partners, and family.
Instead of burning energy on a frontal assault, redirect your focus entirely toward those who are already inside that closed circle and hold real influence over the principal's thinking. Study the leader's inner orbit. Identify whose judgment they trust unconditionally, and find out who has access to their ear in informal settings away from the office. Begin building genuine, value-driven relationships with them, becoming a trusted resource long before your name is ever mentioned to the principal. Your entry into a major player's life should not feel like an intrusion, but like a natural extension of their reality, arriving through a warm referral from someone they already trust without question. But gaining entry to the inner sanctum is only half the equation, because once you are inside, you must become a perfect reflection of the world you worked so hard to access. The fourth law demands that you master the art of mirroring the power player's world, suppressing any impulse to impose your own perspective or unload your personal problems. One of the fastest ways to squander hard-won access is to make a leader spend mental energy trying to process your personal reality. Power players are, by nature, self-referential and laser-focused on their own priorities, their own objectives, and their own preferred modes of communication. To establish deep rapport, you must first study their worldview, their pace of speech, their energy levels, and the subjects that genuinely excite them. People instinctively trust those in whom they recognize a reflection of their own values and habits, because that familiarity creates a subconscious sense of safety and ideological alignment. Your objective is to adapt to their environment so seamlessly that they feel completely comfortable in your presence, without ever realizing why. Listen far more than you speak. Track the emotional charge your counterpart carries around different topics, and calibrate your behavior to meet their current state. Rigid, overly principled people rarely succeed in the social game because they lack the flexibility required to navigate through different layers of the power structure. Be fluid and precise in your calibrations, becoming the person a leader subconsciously identifies as a kindred spirit. But even the clearest mirror loses its pull when it is hanging in front of someone's face around the clock, which brings us to the brutal necessity of the strategic disappearing act. The fifth law teaches the art of selective availability. In human psychology, value is directly proportional to scarcity. The more frequently you appear, and the easier it is to command your attention, the lower your value drops in their eyes.
Many people make the mistake of believing that constant availability and instant responses to every request demonstrate loyalty and indispensability. In reality, constant proximity breeds familiarity, and familiarity quickly turns to indifference, and eventually, contempt. Give people the unmistakable sense that your time is a finite resource, allocated with intention and deployed only for high-leverage priorities. Allow people to feel your absence. Create the space for them to realize how much more difficult their lives become without your judgment and solutions in the mix. The person who is always on standby gets treated like office furniture, while the person whose presence has to be earned always commands a higher valuation. Build an aura of demand around yourself, so that every interaction feels meaningful and rare. This engineered distance creates a psychological scarcity that words can never satisfy, which brings us to the value of silence. The sixth law of power states that you must speak less than is necessary, converting your silence into an instrument of emotional control. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill every gap with noise, inadvertently broadcasting their anxieties, insecurities, and intentions to anyone paying attention. Power players read excessive talking as a lack of discipline and an inability to keep secrets that automatically shuts you out of serious deals.
When you deliberately limit your words, they begin to carry the weight of gold, and those around you start hanging on every syllable, trying to decode the meaning behind your restraint. Mastering the pause allows you to watch others crack under the pressure of silence, voluntarily revealing their positions just to fill the void. Remember, every word you speak is intelligence a sophisticated adversary can weaponize against you. Verbal economy is the ultimate way to protect your authority.
An insecure person constantly justifies their decisions and explains their reasoning in real time, while a genuine leader simply states outcomes and reserves the right to silence. Your task is to become comfortable with escalating tension, the kind that builds when you stop entertaining the room with noise. Silence builds an aura of gravity, compelling people to analyze your thoughts rather than dismiss you. But silence is only the canvas on which you will paint the full picture of your influence using far more aggressive methods of consolidation. The seventh law reveals one of the darkest truths of human nature. Nothing bonds people faster or more permanently than a shared enemy. Ancient tribal survival instincts still govern our social circuitry, hardwiring us to seek coalition partners in the face of real or perceived threats. If you want to instantly earn a power player's trust, find out who they are at war with and take your position beside them in the trenches without hesitation.
People can spend years forgetting those who shared their good times, but they remember until the day they die who stood beside them in moments of genuine danger. That alliance forged over common opposition creates a foundation exponentially more durable than any business synergy or shared hobby. It is critical to understand that the enemy does not need to be a specific individual. It can be a competitive technology, an obsolete market model, or a shifting narrative in public opinion working against them. Your job is to identify that threat and help neutralize it, becoming an indispensable ally in their campaign for dominance. When you fight alongside someone, you are no longer a supplicant. You are a brother in arms, earning access to a completely different level of trust and candor. But in the heat of that shared battle, it is absolutely critical that you never lose sight of the most dangerous obstacle on the path to the top: the ego of the very person you are helping to win.
The eighth law is perhaps the most mission-critical for long-term survival. Never outshine the person above you in the hierarchy, even if you are genuinely superior in talent, intellect, or execution. In the 17th century, Nicolas Fouquet, finance minister of France, made a fatal miscalculation by throwing an extravagant gala at his estate that triggered the wounded pride and open envy of the young King Louis XIV. Fouquet intended to signal his loyalty and his means, but all he accomplished was making the king feel diminished and threatened by his own subordinate. The outcome of that error was permanent. Fouquet spent the remainder of his life in prison, and his story became a timeless case study in what happens when you let your own shine eclipse the one above you. Your capabilities must be channeled into making the leader look wiser, more powerful, and more successful, never into showcasing your own superiority. The shrewd advisor presents their best ideas in a way that makes the leader believe the ideas were their own. This secures your safety and keeps you close to the center of power. The moment you make a superior feel insecure, you have signed your own exit papers within that structure. Your strength must remain invisible, while your results are undeniable and always attributed to the person holding the keys. And yet this is only the first blow to your ego, because genuine power requires not only the wisdom to operate below the radar, but the capacity to make the world orbit around you on your own terms. The ninth law of social mechanics establishes that real leverage lies in making others come to you, rather than endlessly chasing their approval. The person who pushes too hard to be noticed signals that their market value is lower than the person they are chasing.
In the world of high-stakes politics and elite business, that dynamic is the equivalent of conceding defeat before the negotiation even begins, because you have voluntarily surrendered the initiative to your counterpart. Instead of begging for attention, focus on building such a high level of competence and reputation that it functions like a gravitational field. When you possess a unique resource that cannot be replicated, people will beat a path to your door. At that point, you set the terms. Develop skills that cannot be replaced by a short training course or a straightforward hire, making your name synonymous with quality and reliability in the tight circles where real influence lives. Allow the word of mouth about your effectiveness to travel faster than you do when entering new networks, creating a sense of anticipation around your arrival. The person who is invited always commands more status than the person who shows up uninvited. That initial respect allows you to engage with power players on equal footing. But this is only the first blow to your habit of chasing. Because once you have built that gravitational pull, the brutal next requirement is to defend your reputation against any and all incursions. The 10th law demands that you guard your reputation as if your life depends on it. In hierarchical structures, perception is reality. You can do 1,000 things right, but a single shadow cast over your name can demolish decades of careful positioning. People make their determination about working with you before you speak a single word, based entirely on the whisper that follows you through the corridors of power. Your reputation is your currency. If it depreciates, no amount of talent can buy back the trust of the elite. Never forget that you are judged not only by what you do, but by the company you visibly keep in public. Filter your inner circle with ruthless precision. Cut loose anyone who brings chaos, weakness, or compromised associations into your orbit that could damage your brand equity. A powerful reputation opens doors that no wire transfer, no matter the size, could ever force open, becoming your invisible shield during periods of political turbulence. But even a flawless image will not insulate you from the emergence of adversaries, and this is precisely where the skill of converting threats into strategic opportunities becomes non-negotiable. The 11th law. Never waste emotional energy hating your enemies. Instead, reverse engineer them for your own growth. The emotional player seeks to destroy their opponent, while the strategist studies them to identify their own blind spots and gaps in their defensive perimeter. Your enemies often deliver the harsh, unfiltered truths that friends suppress out of politeness or fear of damaging the relationship. Use the friction of a hostile environment to sharpen your skills and harden your discipline.
History is full of examples where yesterday's most intractable rivals became the most fiercely loyal allies, precisely because their bond was forged in real opposition rather than comfortable agreement. When you convert a former adversary into a committed supporter, their loyalty runs deeper than that of anyone who never witnessed your power and your capacity for strategic mercy. But never bank on gratitude or goodwill in business. That reality leads directly to the 12th law of influence. People operate exclusively in their own self-interest. Appealing to their compassion or sense of fairness only signals desperation and weakness. Retire the words, please, and help me. Replace them with a precise articulation of the return on investment the other party receives by partnering with you. Power players think in transactions, and your success depends entirely on how convincingly you can demonstrate the ROI of betting on you. But this is only the first blow to your faith in human generosity. Because beneath the transactional mindset lies the absolute necessity of social camouflage. The 13th law represents the ultimate social camouflage. Think whatever you want, but behave like everyone else. Throughout human history, there has been nothing more strategically dangerous than the open display of your intellectual or moral superiority over accepted convention. When you publicly broadcast unconventional views or challenge the values held by the majority, you voluntarily paint a target on your chest for every person who feels threatened by disruption and change. The greatest power players in history, like Cardinal Richelieu, were masters of outward conformity while maintaining complete internal freedom. They understood that open confrontation with the system consumes resources at an unsustainable rate, resources better spent quietly compounding their own power from within. Your assignment is to blend in when it serves your objectives, staying off the radar of social criticism. Participate in the expected rituals, maintain the standard conversations, and resist the impulse to correct others' misconceptions unless doing so delivers a direct strategic dividend to you personally. Allow people to classify you as one of them, because that classification disarms their vigilance and grants you an unobstructed view of their genuine motivations without triggering unnecessary friction. True power lives in duality, outward discipline and strict protocol on the surface, concealing a cold, calculating intelligence that never loses sight of its objectives. And that is the final note in the symphony of your ascent, because you now hold the complete toolkit for bending reality to serve your own design. These 13 laws have served as the foundation for building the greatest empires and personal fortunes in history. You now understand the operating principles that 99% of the population will never internalize. They will continue to live in the comfortable illusion of a fair and transparent world. You have been handed knowledge that circulates only in whispers within closed doors, and that intelligence has permanently altered how you will process every conversation, every introduction, and every handshake from this point forward. But knowledge alone will not change your position. Information without execution is just an intellectual hobby. These principles only work when they become instinct, executed without hesitation. From this moment forward, you are no longer a spectator in someone else's highlight reel. You are the architect of your own trajectory, capable of calibrating your presence with precision based on the objective in front of you.
Study the reactions of those around you. Deploy scarcity as a tool. Engineer your access through back channels, and never allow your ego to override cold calculation. The climb will be long, and the obstacles will number in the thousands. But you now hold the map with every trap and every hidden path clearly marked. Keep in mind the timeless truth. The ends justify the means, but only when the goal is genuinely worth it, and the means are applied with surgical precision. And this is only the first layer of your education, because the psychology of influence and the mechanics of wealth accumulation run far deeper than what is accessible to the uninitiated. Most people who hear this will walk away and return to their comfortable lives, forgetting everything within 15 minutes. But if these words resonate with you, if you feel that internal drive for real leverage, you have already distinguished yourself from the noise.
Your future now depends entirely on your discipline and your willingness to execute these rules in a world that prefers comfortable lies. Every decision you make, every word you choose, and every silence you deploy must be governed by strategic necessity rather than a fleeting emotional impulse. We will continue to pull back the curtain on the mechanics of power. Stay locked in, subscribe to the channel, and prepare for the reality that your life will never look the same again, because you have chosen the path of the player. Welcome to the world where you set the rules.